I'll read a brief statement after which I will take questions. I would ask that when the questions are coming, you can raise your hand and then I can invite those questions. The statement. The AFC remains committed to contesting these elections on its own, if necessary. That is the position of the party. We have been authorized by our executive to enter into discussion with other parties. We believe that with some parties, it is better to have documented the parameters of our engagement just so that we are all on the same page. However, there is no change in our commitment to enter into these elections on our own if necessary, and any parties which will engage with us in the interest of the country. We intend to enter into similar agreements to protect the terms of any arrangement with any other party. The present agreement, that is the agreement between ourselves and APNU, which we signed today, is on life support. The terms of the agreement, which we've entered into today, will be shared with the press in due course. That ends the statement that I wish to read. Members of the press, if you have any questions, please just raise your hand. Mr. Livewire, forgive me, Mr. Jones. Yes, sir. And then followed.
Good evening,
minute, please. Sir, just let me document this. I don't have a moderator, so it's going to be yourself, Mr. Jones, and then Davina from Kaito News, and then I see Ms. Marshall Svetlin from Marshall, and then Ms. Rutherford. Okay, please go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Hughes, you just mentioned that the agreement signed today is on life support, if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
Based on what we've seen in the past in relation to the Cummingsburg Accord and that kind of thing, how confident are you that the APNU will stick to the new agreement and you will not, as you say, have to go into it alone?
Well, there's no commitment at the moment. What we have done is we've entered into an exploratory agreement with them. If you're asking me how confident we are, I think I've said that the agreement, which was signed today, is currently on life support.
Sorry, just could I do a follow-up?
Please.
Are you going into this new agreement wiping the slate clean, given the old agreement and what happened in the past? Is it a case like that you're looking past that?
What I will say is that I think it was Reagan who said you trust but verify. We are guided by our experiences in the past, but we are not going to be burdened by them. And forgive me for repeating it. I did say that it's on life support. So we're very keen to learn the lessons of what has happened before, and I have a personal responsibility to ensure that they are not repeated. Can I ask, I think it's Davina next.
Hello, good evening. Davina Bagad with Kaito News. Mr. Hughes, could you kindly elaborate on what exactly this MOU intends to do? And can you also help us understand why you are saying that this partnership or this agreement, so to speak, is on life support? Thank you. That's it for now.
Sure. The agreement was structured in two phases. The first phase would be an exploratory phase where we examine whether or not it is possible for us to collaborate in the national interest and present a joint team or a single team to contest the next elections. The second phase is dependent on whether or not we had a successful conclusion to the first phase. In relation to your second question, I would only say that trust and confidentiality for us are particularly important. And let me leave it there. I think after that we had Svetlin, Ms. Marshall.
Just permit me a follow-up, please.
Please.
What would be some of the determining factors for the AFC in terms of collating again with the APNU?
What would be the terms? In fact,
no, I'm asking. Sorry, just let me clarify. I'm asking what are some of the determining factors that, or what are some of the things that would that would compel the AFC to join forces with the APNU at the upcoming elections? Like, what or what are some of the things that you are looking for in this partnership?
Okay, I can give you sort of broad outlines, but what I will say is that the parties have identified and appointed negotiators. We had a negotiator leading up to this agreement. The terms, of course, would start with what's in the national interest, and the priorities that we would seek to advance are those priorities that I articulated that I was elected as the head of the party, and the various issues or programs, sorry, not issues, programs that I've spoken about from time to time. So things, for example, Bank for Women, we certainly think there should be emphasis on heading towards a balanced budget, particularly in terms of transfer of wealth. We think it should be far more equitable, but I don't want to prejudice those discussions by going into them in detail at this stage, but I certainly believe our negotiating team will address that. Ms. Marshall?
Just before, Mr. Hughes, can I just be allowed one last question? With regard to the leadership of any possible coalition between your parties, is it decided that that will be Mr. Norton or?
Absolutely not. The short
Okay.
answer to that is no. There has to be a mechanism for identifying, assuming that it gets out of life support and gets back on its feet. There has to be a mechanism and a process for identifying the leadership. For us, that process has to be driven by scientific means, polls and other criteria. If and when we get there, I'm sure we'll address that. Ms. Marshall?
Mr. Hughes, Davina asked my question, so
Okay,
I'll leave it to
sure.
somebody else.
I think after you, we had, is it Dennis? No, we had, Dennis, I believe.
Mr. Hughes, can you say why exactly you're saying that the accord is on life support and if it gets out of life support? And what are some of the factors that will influence whether indeed there is a coalition going into the next election?
Well, the factors would come out of the negotiations which our appointed representatives would enter into. In relation to your question about factors, I think I addressed this before in relation to Davina. I indicated that trust and confidentiality are particularly important to us. I see.
Do you have trust and confidentiality now?
I just indicated it's in life support, and I just indicated in my response to you, forgive me for being repetitive, that those are issues that we hold close to us, fundamental to our operations.
So why you entered into an agreement if not knowing ahead of time that there is no trust and confidentiality?
You're making a presumption there that there was an absence of those characteristics before we signed off.
What makes it being on life support if there is trust and confidentiality? Why is that it's still a life support?
I believe you would know that the life of any agreement commences at the time of its execution, not beforehand. And if there are developments post its execution, which may cause to impair, which may impair some of the terms of that agreement, then that's a condition after signing, not pre-signing. So it's clear that before we entered into the agreement, we had a particular position, and that perhaps has changed. Marcel, Stabrook News. Marcel, Stabrook News.
Sorry. Yes. Mr. Hughes, I have two questions. One is this agreement that you guys signed today. Did you give yourself a time frame for when discussions would end?
Yes, we did.
I know from what is that time frame?
I think it's the 31st of March. I'm just checking so that I can be accurate, but I think it was the 31st of March.
Okay.
The terms of the agreement will be, the general terms will be shared with the media after.
Okay, and to you keep emphasizing that this is on life support.
Mm-hmm.
What what does life support mean to the AFC at this time? Life support in the general context is, I think for most families, it's holding on to the hope that something positive is going to
Sorry,
come
is
through.
there, I'm hearing noise in the background. Forgive me. I don't know if it's
That might
yours.
have got turned off our TV, Mr. Hughes. This is not a cake shop operation.
Mr.
Uh,
Jones, I prefer if,
this
please,
is not
I
who
prefer,
needs to turn off our TV.
Miss Marcel, let's just keep
Huh?
this simple. And Mr.
No,
Jones,
who
we'd
needs
rather
to
not
turn
have
off
you
the
comment,
TV?
Miss Marcel, let's just keep this as civil as we can.
Oh, Mr. Youth, because I am going to say that I'm hearing a feedback also, but just know that I'm in office and there's no TV anywhere.
I thank you for that clarity. Please
Yes.
go ahead.
And I was asking, what does life support in this context mean to the AFC? Are you
When you,
holding out for a
sorry.
positive? Go ahead.
No, forgive me. Forgive my impertinence. I cut you, so please complete and then I can respond.
Yeah, I was referring to your frequent reference to that this is life support, this is on life support. I wanted to know for the AFC, in the context of life support, is it that the AFC is holding out for a positive ending in terms of the life support context? What does life support mean to the AFC?
I think holding out would be not an accurate description of the position of the AFC. The AFC's position tonight is that there have been developments which have caused us to pause. Now, anything that is in life support, the fact that it's in life support, I think holds out that there's always hope and promise that we will move from that position to one that is positive. But of course, there's an equal possibility of a movement in a less than favorable direction. I
Okay,
see
thank you.
Trina Williams.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Hughes, Trina Williams, Ghana Chronicle. In your responses to my colleagues' questions, you stressed a lot on trust and confidentiality. My first question to you is the issues that plague the former coalition still remain unaddressed, at least in the public domain. How would the same parties with the same faces convince voters that a coalition is the best choice and it's not an opportunistic attempt to grab power?
Well, there's so many presumptions that I believe that are inaccurate in your question. For example, there are not the same faces. A lot of the faces that were there before are no longer here, including the former president, the former prime minister, and I can list a series of persons, the former head of the office of the president. So there are a series of persons who are not here on both sides. So I can't agree with the premise of your question, but if you're asking me at a macro level, what would lead to some confidence that this can move forward? I think one is that there's certainly a different leaders now. Secondly, I believe we are all better informed as a result of our experiences, and therefore our eyes may not be as less than receptive to all that's in front of it than otherwise.
Mr. Hughes,
sorry, hold on. Let's keep this.
Nigel, can I suggest that? Sorry, and good night, folks. I don't like that you allow the person that haven't asked questions before to go, because I see. Yeah.
No, I know. I'm asking those that want to ask questions to put their hands up. Right now I'm seeing Mr. Cabral, who's asked the question before. I'm seeing Ms. Williams, who's already asked the question before, and like Wire News. I don't see any hands from anybody else. But
Mr. Hughes, could I go now? Sorry.
I still have one more question.
Hold on. Sorry.
Nigel, let me do this. Miss Svetlana, you're up.
I still had a question, Mr. Patterson.
You will get a turn. We'll come back around.
Mr. Hughes, given that you've said that the agreement is presently on life support, what are the conditions that ought to be met to get that agreement out of life support and towards a coalition ahead of the elections?
Ms. Marshall, my first response to that is there is a confidentiality clause in the agreement, and I would not seek to want to breach that by disclosing what those conditions would necessarily be at this point. I think it has the risk of being far more prejudicial than helpful to the process. So forgive me.
Thank you very much. Can we go back to Mr. Light? I have one question per person, and then Mr. Schwal, then Ms. Williams again. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, I just wanted to, first of all, congratulations on your election as a presidential candidate for the AFC. My question is, could you say who were the other persons, or if there were the other persons who would have vied for the presidential candidacy for the AFC?
I can answer that for him. Mr. Hughes was unanimously appointed. Because Dennis
nobody
Chabral,
else. Okay.
Unanimously appointed unopposed. Mr. Dennis Chabral?
Yes, Mr. Hughes, who are the negotiators on both sides, and what prompted you really to hold this briefing tonight?
I can disclose our negotiator. We are bound by confidentiality, so I won't disclose the negotiator from the other side. Our negotiator, was Mr. Alston Stewart.
And what prompted you to hold this briefing tonight?
We just wanted to clarify matters that had surfaced during the course of the afternoon in relation to this agreement.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Ms. Williams?
Yeah, Mr. Hughes, coming back to me, is the AFC confident that it wouldn't be sidelined again in a coalition administration?
First of all, thank you for the question. What I will say is the AFC is a different party under different leadership. I'm not for a second saying that it was necessarily sidelined, but I certainly believe that we will be very, very committed to our positions that we make publicly, as well as our positions privately, and most importantly, our commitment to the people of Guyana.
For clarification there, you said that how the AFC wasn't necessarily sidelined in the previous administration. Did I hear correctly?
Yeah, what I said is what I perhaps, no, I did say that, and what I meant by it, just for the purposes of clarity, is that I'm not necessarily assuming that what you have said as a premise is correct, but if that is so, my position is that we now have different leadership.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think everyone would have asked.
Please have one more question, Mr. Patterson, please.
Mr. Patterson,
Please.
My hand again.
My hand is up, Mr. Patterson, please.
Can Marcella and Miss Marcella from Starbuck News?
It was just for clarity. You said Mr. Alston Stewart, the Jamaican?
Yes, Mr. Stewart is a Jamaican. That's correct.
Oh, I know. He also.
Is the question you're asking, Marcel? Can we? Hello?
Marcel, you're going to say, is he also something? I didn't hear the rest of the question.
Mr. Lightwire, when Miss Marshall,
Mr. Hughes, Mr. Hughes, you said the AFC is under different leadership. Would it be safe for me to assume that that would mean, in your view, the previous leadership would have been responsible for the outcome of the previous agreement between the AFC and the APNU?
That's quite a leap, Mr. Jones. Quite a leap. Not at all. I said it's on the different.
That's what I'm asking.
And there's no way for me saying there's different leadership to lead to the conclusions that you're seeking to draw, sir.
All right. Marcel, you wanted to finish the question that we could not hear, and then I think, ladies and gentlemen,
if Mr. Stewart was taken because of his past role in 2015, given that he's familiar with the coalescing of the two parties for that agreement.
Mr. Stewart was chosen because of his excellent track record, his experience. He has advised parties in Jamaica successfully that have won elections there on several occasions. He has advised parties elsewhere. And we, as a result of our long relationship with him and our experiences with him, are fully confident that he is capable, more than capable, of assisting us at this stage.
All right, I see Davina from Kaito News, and I think that this will be the last question because I think everyone had a full round. Davina,
Thank
you have
you.
the
Just for
last question.
clarity, yeah, just for clarity, Mr. Hughes, did I hear you say correctly that the 31st of March will be the date when the two parties would decide whether or not they're going to collate? Is that what you said?
Right. The third, what the contract contemplates, the agreement contemplates, is that we must arrive at a position by that date, failing which we don't go on, or if we do arrive at an agreement, then the shape and scope of what we arrive at would determine what happens next.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll close, but I just think I'm sorry for not being on video. Just think that just for clarity, what was agreed to was a two-stage process, and stage one was simply limited to the issues of GCOM, because we do feel that the GCOM and GCOM proprietary net needs a joint opposition approach, and as well as questions of policies. It has nothing phase one, it has zero to do with presidential candidates or any such things. And just for clarity, and should stage one have been successfully done and executed, that as the leader saying that we could see if we could move on to stage two. Just for clarity, so I don't want you to think, but obviously, as the leader said, we will release all the documents shortly. So I want to thank you all for attending at such short notice. Nigel, I know that it's a bit late. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you very much for coming out.